I feel like I need to do a little bit of a update on this channel and on the things that I have been doing and that I wanted to be doing. For those that have started following me before 2020 started or early in 2020, you will have noticed that I started with some goals reports as well as budget reports and sharing what I was earning as well as spending online. And I was having this huge plan for this year and for the things that I wanted to accomplish during it. Now, that kind of went out of the window at some point during the corona start or the start of the corona crisis. And I think that there have been many people that have been affected by it in all kinds of different ways, and I have probably not even been affected that badly. But the crisis, the fact that in Germany there was a shortage of toilet paper, there were all kinds of businesses closing down, and who knows what else. There was a lot going on at the time. And there was a lot going on for myself as well. And it made me think about many things. And it felt like a paralysis in some regard. Because in a way, I shouldn't have even been affected that badly. I work from anywhere I want anyways. I don't have to go anywhere. My business isn't shutting down in that sense. And it's just not really, it wasn't really that bad for me. But psychologically, it impacted me heavily. I kind of want to make a wrap around all the things that have changed, that have affected me in the recent weeks, and also how the situation before with the corona crisis and everything has affected the situation in the right now. And I want to do so in a couple of different topics that I want to cover in this episode. And I want to start with money and debt. I also want to talk about minimalism equipment and the desire for quality. And then I also want to touch on healthy lifestyle choices and similar things. Now, starting out with money and debt. I always thought of myself proudly that I didn't have any debt. However, that also wasn't the full truth. A couple of years ago, I actually went ahead and purchased a computer, a new MacBook Pro, upgrading from my something like 2015, 2014 MacBook Pro to a late 2017 MacBook Pro that I use to this day. However, at the time, I was tighter on money than I would have wished for, so I asked my mom to lend me that money. Now, over the years, there have been multiple instances where certain aspects of this I was able or would have been able to pay back, then I wasn't, and so on and so forth. And so I had this number in my budget sheet, which was 3,000 euros that I was in debt toward my mom, essentially. So all of a sudden, I did have debt, and even though it was in the family, it wasn't a credit card debt that many people talk about. It still felt like that because there was the innate desire to I want to give this back. I have the desire to give this back, and this will happen one day. Now, with Corona and the whole Corona crisis coming along, there also was something around the country Germany and the different states where there were care packages basically made for certain types of businesses and also for keeping the economy afloat, basically, helping businesses out, cover their expenses. And at the time, I thought I am one of those businesses. I'm a very small business owner. I need the help. And here are my reasons for needing this. And so I applied and I got that grant. The money arrived on my bank account. However, I got a lot more than I expected. And so in some way, I immediately thought to myself, this is not going to stay on my bank account forever. I will probably give some part back to the country because this is out of proportion. However, there is also the temptation of just keeping it because money. But over time, as the grip of the corona crisis lightened, I noticed more and more that I probably wasn't as affected as I thought initially. And that left a bad taste in my mouth, according to looking at my bank account and seeing that I basically took on this money as a credit. Um, Even though I, at the time, again, didn't know how I was going to be affected. And that, to me, that's how the money was intended to be used. Like, you presented your case. This is how things have changed. This is how things can change. This is how the next 3 months are going to go. That's the state. Then you get that fund money, basically. And then after that, you assess how everything went. And based on that, you make a judgment whether or not you keep part of it, keep all of it, or any of those methods. Now, I kind of started to take things more seriously recently. Looking at my life, restructuring, finding purpose, and looking at what I wanted to do, how I wanted to do things. And a lot of things have happened around this apartment, being moved in here, having this quote unquote proper life here in Hof, and having everything set up for an amazing start, a restart, essentially. And so it became clearer and clearer to me that with that, I also have to take my finances more seriously than I have before. And I really have to look into the debt that I owe. And at that point, it really felt like, and the numbers in my sheet were essentially saying you are 8,000 euros in debt. And this really left me uneasy. And this whole situation is also part of the reason why I think refrained from doing any of those other budget reports over the last couple of months, because I didn't really want to look, and I especially didn't want to share everything that was happening. Even the fact that I considered needing the help from the Bavarian state made me feel like I failed already. Like, I needed to take on debt to be able to make it in business and make my business work. So that kept me from making those videos. It also stalled me in many other ways. The whole corona crisis was a heavy weight to lift, and it surely was for many others and probably you as well. However, new apartment, new self, new plan, new ideas, also newfound energy with seeing more and more growth around YouTube and the comments coming in and the interaction with you out there. And this has really been an amazing help throughout this whole process and throughout this whole situation, and also this whole crisis, that I sat down just a couple days ago and I made the decision that everything needs to be cleared out. So I sat down with my mom, cleared that off, and then it was time for the whole corona money thing. And there I basically just Googled information about how one would repay that money. And I found the information, and yesterday I moved ahead, did it, and now everything on my budget report is paid for. I even have already moved money aside for the next month's rent and those kind of things, that I know that I'm set. Now, this left me in a position where I don't necessarily have tons of money floating around on my bank accounts. However, it's hell of a lot better to have something in the positive and low rather than having higher numbers, but also a huge number in the red. And this clearing of debt, it gave me a connection to people that have long-standing debt on their credit cards in other ways, and also on student loans or something. Not so much to the amount, because I'm sure there are people out there who have way, way more debt than I do and had to do that in order to gain their degree or something like that. And I'm very fortunate that I never experienced that to that degree. But the moment of switching the bank account around, basically writing the zero into that field of debt I owe someone, that really felt liberating. it felt like I'm losing a weight. And this, even though per numbers, I now have less money on my bank account than before, I feel so much better and so much more looking forward with energy. So now that this is cleared, I also feel like I'm probably going to go backwards and update my budget reports throughout the missing months. And then with August, start again to basically get back on track here to move forward with more honesty and transparency. And maybe there will be times in the future again where I decide to keep certain parts out of the big picture or out of that picture that I'm sharing, because I'm probably not perfect. And there may be situations where I feel ashamed of a certain part and aspect, and I might not want to share that. I don't know those things yet, but at least I'm cleared from those things that are holding me back right now. And that really is alleviating. From there, let's talk about equipment minimalism as well as perfectionism that I also wanted to kind of like touch on, and it kind of goes in a similar direction. I may have talked about this in past videos, but basically the last few days and weeks, I got a new inspiration to look into lifestyle design, minimalism, and also the question of why am I not doing what I am doing? And a lot of it has been sparked by exploring how could I get hands on an EOS R5 or any other really amazing new camera that is out there, because the Sony a7S III also looks incredibly promising. However, if I'm honest with myself, right now, I have the equipment that I have, and amazing people have made amazing things with exactly those items. I also noticed more and more that there are a whole lot of YouTube channels that are making videos that don't use the latest and greatest equipment. I recently even found 2 YouTubers who grew to a bigger subscriber number within the last year, and they're both in the area of 200,000, 300,000 subscribers, and they're definitely shooting on something smaller than I have, and they, in a way, give less care to how the audio is recorded and in what kind of room it's recorded. And I found myself watching their videos no matter what, because they were funny, they were interesting, and all those things. And I'm going to link those in the description below, those I can remember, so that you can have a look for yourself as well. Because for me, it really helped to see that. It helped to see that someone is creating, someone is making something with what they have, even though it's a point and shoot camera without an external microphone. And I can have even a lavalier and my microphone and an external recorder and all those things, and I have a full frame camera. It makes me crazy. Because this is part of the problem of, I know I have the expensive camera, but I want to go on a hike with less weight, so maybe I should just take my phone and make photos with that. This is also about the fact that I have a 24-105 lens here, which gives me the 24 millimeters that I am using right now. However, I also have this nice little 35 millimeter 1.8, which gives me a nice blurry background and more light, because right now I'm using an ISO at 1000. This would not be necessary if I were to use this lens, but it doesn't give me the same feeling of talking to you out there because I'm this way closer to the camera. I would have to be much further away to use the 35 millimeters. So I'm trying to learn to accept lesser quality for more convenience. I need the convenience. I need the ease of use. Making something, even though it may not be the best I can achieve, it may not be the perfect thing, it may not be in 4K or all those things, but it is better to have achieved something with ease than to keep waiting for the perfect moment or putting it off because it would be so much work to get there. And the same thing is true for other aspects. For example, whether or not I script a video, whether or not I research everything to perfection or not. And this has also something to do with my judgmentalness. I tend to be very judgmental toward others when I find out that I have information and knowledge that I expect them to have as well. So then I look down on them for saying something that's supposedly stupid or uninformed because they could have known. But the interesting turnaround of that is that I also judge myself all the time for not taking the time to research something all the way to the end, not taking the time to make sure that I have all the facts straight. And so I, again, hold myself back by not making the video because I might say something wrong. So those things are also in the mix. So I need to make creation easy for myself again. I even thought about not using C-Log on the Canon EOS R anymore because I can't shoot with auto ISO. But right now I'm also deciding that maybe I should just keep using C-Log because it gives me a nicer quality image and I can just change the ISO and play around with that. So if you notice me changing the ISO, that's why. And I might just interact with that situation differently than having automatic settings. But it also meant other things. And I made a little list of things that I started doing or implementing. And it starts with the fact that I removed software from my computer and started using less software, essentially. And I did the same thing to my phone as well, basically reducing the software on the phone and not having the perfect thing for every single situation ready to go, but instead having a few handful of things that I really use a lot of the time, and then learning those better, and sometimes adapting to the situation with what I have. That's one step. It basically goes into the direction of minimalism, of having only the necessary things available to me. However, I can't really do that for everything because, for example, in my own experience, I tend to code every couple of weeks or every couple of months, depending on a project coming up, my own interest being sparked in something, and then I need those things available to me. I don't want to have to download and set up my whole coding environment every single time I decide to write a couple lines of code, but those things stay available. So there is a balance to be struck between necessary software in the day-to-day and then certain things that may not be important at all times, but are really good to have for those times where I want them, where I desire to work with those things. So that's definitely something to keep in mind around this reduction. And I think that's the same thing for reducing the possessions, because some things only work in certain times. Another aspect was that what I already mentioned, learning to put away or put aside certain pieces of equipment, even though they may be higher quality as certain other parts, but by having them available, I'm actually reducing the chance of me actually creating something. And this is maybe a light, maybe this is hanging the fairy lights behind me or something like that, which it was a fun time up in the attic with those fairy lights, as well as the aperture MC lights with the different colors behind me. But I much prefer the now cleaner look. So that's where I'm going right now, at least. I'm now in the process of learning to accept less quality for having more convenience, as I've mentioned before. I also went through my old hard drives and basically did a spring cleaning. And for the first time in a long time, I actually went through and did a basically deleting of project files. And I'm not talking about the rendered finished video files. I'm talking about the source files. The decision that I made around this was to basically only keep source files of projects where something interesting was happening. And that needed to be, for example, a travel day or some personal event that was going on that day that I was, for example, vlogging. However, I basically deleted everything that was just talking head videos, tutorials, and those kind of things. Those videos, the talking heads, the tutorials, those things, I can always recreate. And I can also go back to the videos that are finished and published. I can only do this to a certain extent with footage I gathered while traveling, for example. So I kept those things, but that's much, much less than all of the tutorials that I was shooting and the talking head videos. And I didn't really need those things anymore, and I was ready to let go. And I still have the exported videos, but that's minuscule compared to the file sizes I had before that with all the raw files, basically. And in making space on my archive hard drives that I have right here, these are two 3 terabyte drives, which I have also duplications of in a vault around here. And in making all those decisions and also making more space on there, I was also able to move away other stuff onto those archive drives. So now the drives that I use for everyday stuff to put new photos on or to put new video projects on, those are cleared up. They have space. They have actual room to breathe so that I can put new projects on them and really get started again. It always felt annoying to see, oh, this hard drive has just 100 gigabytes left, or this hard drive is down to 50 gigabytes, or even my internal drive on my MacBook was already almost full. And that was just annoying. It was so annoying that sometimes even that kept me from creating, because I knew if I shoot a video now and that's 75 gigabytes, I'm just gonna have either to clear something off my computer or do some other stuff to move it around, move other things to other drives and those things. So now having the space available again, having all those things cleared out, it really also feels very uplifting. And then I have one last chapter that I want to talk about today, and that's health, weight, and lifestyle. And this is a chapter not really that easy to talk about, but it's also necessary to look into and explore. Over the years, I experienced myself and my weight fluctuating between something around 68 to 82 kilograms, which is quite the range. However, now I find myself toward that higher end again. And this has happened in the past when I don't really feel all that happy. And at the same time, right now, the funny thing is that I feel very motivated. And even though there was the whole corona crisis and that whole situation, I feel like I can move much, much more now than in the past. And so maybe part of the weight increase is not necessarily just bad weight, but instead a certain amount of muscle to be able to move more. But I am painfully aware that I also gained more on my belly and my legs, which I probably could train away and also make healthier food choices. But why am I sharing this? And that comes back to this idea that these videos are part for an audience and part for myself in the audience, to be able to reflect back on and see where I came from instead of just sharing all the successes that I had. But I want to document that state that it is right now. So now about this, I was clearing out my clothing and figuring out what do I want to wear more of, what do I want to maybe get rid of or give away, and also what do I want to put in a drawer of I maybe need this for later or some special time. In that clearing, I tried on a couple things and noticed, shoot, there's way too many pairs of pants that have gotten to a point where I can't really wear them anymore. That's not a situation I want. That's absolutely not the situation I want. And it gave me a very, very, very painful realization that there has to happen something. I have to change something. So what will that be? I don't know yet, because I'm notorious for not doing sports to the degree that I would like to. So I will have to find a way of mixing healthy foods and moving more. So that's gonna be interesting to explore. I did notice also, to go back to the topic of minimalism, which we talked about earlier, that with all those realizations and that desire to clear the path and make new choices, I also noticed a certain draw toward a procrastination, which feels really nice, which I would call the minimalist cleanup procrastination. Basically, what I mean by that is during those last few days where all of those things hit me, I also felt great inspiration to go through everything and throw out the things that I don't need anymore and become more minimalist and start reducing again and clearing out and organizing and all those things. And funny enough, maybe I also just need to make those things happen, actually work out instead of clearing a shelf, which obviously would be a good idea, but not really right now necessary. Whereas feeling healthier would be something that gave me more energy tomorrow. So that's a snowball effect. And maybe clearing out a shelf is a snowball effect as well, but it's not going to necessarily do the same thing. And again, I have so many building blocks that I have to tackle, which has to be with income, client work, project work, eating, organizing life, clearing out things, also shooting these videos, and also incorporating more sports and adventure into my life. So all those things at the same time, I probably should start to cluster my life and find which parts I want to focus on at what point. And that's going to be an interesting challenge as well. Maybe this look into my life and the documentation and the sharing of what I'm going through right now isn't interesting to you at all. If you have stuck around for this long in this video, it probably is interesting to some degree. So I would love to know from you what you like about this sharing, or what you would like to learn more about, and also what you might not be as interested in. So you can leave those thoughts in the comment section down below. I'm feeling inspired to connect on a different level. I'm feeling inspired to take example from other YouTube creators who do similar things, to share and build together and document the journey to something greater. And for me, something greater right now means this path that I have put myself on to build something self-sustainable, where I can live and work on what I desire to do, and do that under my own company name, do that under my own brand, which partly is this YouTube channel, and also other ideas that I would love to build in the future and create and put out into the world to be helpful, inspiring, entertaining, and all those things. So please share with me what you think, and follow me on Instagram. I try to also update my story there regularly, post pictures from past travels as well as ongoing adventures whenever there is something, and connect with me there as well. You can write me a DM. You can also connect with me through my website, chrisspiegl.com, where you can find my email as well as Telegram chat, so that we can also stay in contact there. And with all of those things said, I really enjoy speaking to you, connecting with you, sharing these videos, making them for you and me, and also having that reflective time. Okay, I think that's that for today. And let's see when I will share something like this again. Have an amazing day, and I will see you in the next one. Ciao, ciao.